Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of TruthWorks. I'm Jessica Neal, your host, and today I'm here with a very special guest who I am excited to talk about. This person may have been the first ever Chief Evangelist, and he's going to tell us all about what that is. I'm not sure.
Wait. You know there was Jesus before me, right? Just
Yeah,
clarifying.
clarify, he really was probably the first evangelist ever. True. But you're going to tell us what that's all about, Guy. And I'm sure many of our listeners know who Guy Kawasaki is, but Guy is on the podcast today. He now is the chief evangelist at Canva, which is something I use daily and love. And you have written Wiser Guy, Think Remarkable, and you also have a podcast.
That is a very good summary of my entire life in 60 seconds, yes.
Well, I'm trying to do it quickly because, your time is precious. First of all, I just want to back up and kind of go back to the early days of your first chief evangelist job. And that was at Apple with Macintosh, which had to be incredibly fascinating.
Well, I worked at Apple from 1983 to 1987. I was actually the second software evangelist. And our job was to convince people to write Macintosh software and to create Macintosh hardware peripherals. Now, evangelism comes from Greek word, meaning bringing the good news. So what we did as Macintosh software evangelists was we brought the good news of why developing for Macintosh was a smart thing to do. Yeah, so that's how I got my start in evangelism. And now I'm the chief evangelist of Canva. And the good news with Canva is that it has enabled people to become better communicators because it has democratized design.
Yeah. Well, I think you and I share something in common, which I started this podcast to tell the truth about work, right? And I think you also like to tell the truth. And you work in the truths around leadership and communication. And I love how you talk about like grit. But, you've sort of become this well-knowing person who has gone off and really made an impact in the world of not only evangelism but leadership and startups, and it's just been so impactful what you've done. So how did that all happen?
Basically blind dumb shit luck. I wish I could tell you I had a plan and that I majored in psychology because I knew I wanted to be in behavioral economics or something like that, or figure out consumer behavior. But the truth is I picked psychology as a college major because it was the easiest major I could find at the school. I was Asian American, mid-70s, and so your parents wanted you to be a doctor, lawyer, or dentist. And I thought I wanted to be a doctor. I took a class that toured a medical hospital. Not medical hospital, that's redundant. That toured a hospital. And on the first day of that class, I fainted. So I figured, okay, guy, you're not going to be a doctor. And then I read that dentists have the highest percentage of suicide. So I crossed off dentistry. So all that was left was law. And after I graduated, I went to law school for a grand total of 2 weeks and quit because I couldn't stand it. And believe it or not, I really wanted to be an entrepreneur and start a business. So the following year, I entered UCLA in the MBA program. That program has every Friday off. I don't know if that's still true, but I had every Friday off. And I come from a lower middle income family, so I got a part-time job in the jewelry business of all things. So I was literally counting and schlepping diamonds. And after I graduated with my MBA, I went into the jewelry business when all my friends were going to Wells Fargo and Accenture and, JP Morgan and, Kinsey, all those kinds of places. But in the jewelry business, I truly learned how to sell. And when you learn how to sell, that is a lifelong skill that I use to become an evangelist for Apple.
Yeah. So okay, I've heard you talk about this idea of evangelism and the perfect pitch. And I think, I don't know, being a consumer of these pitches in business and in life, not many people know how to do it well. I think, because I'm like, I get bored and I'm like, okay, When can this meeting be done? But what's the secret?
Well, the secret is what I call Guy's golden touch. And Guy's golden touch is not that whatever I touch turns to gold. Guy's golden touch is whatever is gold, Guy touches. So what I'm trying to tell you is the key to evangelism and pitching is that you're evangelizing or pitching something great, because it is easy to pitch or evangelize something great, and it is very hard to pitch or evangelize shit. So don't pitch or evangelize shit.
What if you don't have a choice?
Well, you always have choices. I
Yeah.
mean, that's easy for me to say. If I was a single mom and, I had to have this job and I couldn't, okay, I understand that. If you have the choice, you got to find or create something great, because if you find or create something great, everything else is easy. Well, I mean, it's relatively easy.
Yeah.
Evangelism is just one way to succeed. There are other ways to succeed. I'm not saying it's the be all and end all. It is but one path.
Mm-hmm. So how is it that you have been able to stay so relevant throughout all of these technical evolutions and
I might debate you that I'm relevant.
very relevant?
Well, I mean, thank you very much. Again, to burst the bubble, I had no plan. I fell in love with Apple II. Apple II led me to personal computing. Personal computing led me to Macintosh. Macintosh led me to software, and software led me to the internet. Internet led me to social media. Along the way, I also became a writer, and I just fall in love with stuff. I fell in love recently with a product called Signal, and I just wrote a new book about Signal because I think Signal is such a great piece of software, and it is so essential for the survival of democracy. So I'm basically telling you I had no plan. I just fall in love with stuff, and I just pursue whatever interests me.
Which I think is a great way to be. I didn't really have a plan either. I grew up at Netflix, and I kind of got lucky in doing that and became the CHRO and, learned a ton. But yeah, kind of got lucky. Didn't have a plan around that. But which when people ask me, did you have a plan? I always feel bad that I didn't. Do you feel bad that you didn't? Or no, you don't? You don't care? I feel like I look back and I'm like, maybe I should have been a little bit more intentional, but I wasn't.
I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of miserable people who are intentional.
It's so true. It's so true. Well, so let's talk about your writing a little bit, because you have Wiser Guy, which is a clever title, Wiser Guy. Tell us a little bit about that, and then tell us a little bit about Think Remarkable.
Well, I have a podcast called Remarkable People, and it is now almost 6 years old. This is a podcast whose goal is to, sort of suck the information and inspiration out of remarkable people to help my listeners also become remarkable. So this podcast is not Guy pontificating about what it takes to be great. This is a podcast with Guy trying to get that information out of other remarkable people. So my guests have been people like Jane Goodall, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Steve Wolfram, Steve Wozniak, Tony Fauci, Angela Duckworth, Margaret Atwood, let's see, Katie Milkman, Bob Cialdini, David Ocker, I hope for you, Carol Dweck, the mother of the growth mindset.
Yeah.
So I decided that I had all this knowledge in 300 episodes, which is 300 hours and 6,000 pages of transcripts, and no one was going to listen to all that and read all that. So I should distill the best lessons and make it into a book, and that book is called Think Remarkable. So that is a digestion of all the wisdom that I learned from my podcast. Now, Wiser Guy is a completely different book. Wiser Guy is more like a collection of stories in my life that influenced and taught me lessons. But then the first version of that was called Wise Guy, and that was all my stories. And then after this podcast, I made Wiser Guy because I became wiser with not just my stories, but the stories from my podcast. So
Yeah.
wise guy is all me. Wiser guy is the combination of me and my guests. And then the last book that I'm written, it comes out, I don't know when this is coming out, but it's coming out on January 27th, 2026. And it is called Everybody Has Something to Hide. Why and how do you signal to preserve your privacy and your well-being and, just general goodness? So
Yeah, which is important. I mean, especially these days. So I want to go back to the remarkable people. What is it about? Because you just listed off so many names of people that we all know who are quite remarkable. And I talk to a lot of remarkable people like yourself on this podcast. But is there like one or two things that set these people apart from everybody else? And if so, what do you think it is?
I can only tell you that there's some pattern recognition going on there. And the first thing that I noticed is that these people all had a growth mindset. And there's two kinds of ways to grow. One is to, you fall in love with something very early in your life and you grow along and you become more and more knowledgeable about it. And the world's greatest example of that is Jane Goodall, because at, I don't know, 5 years old, she fell in love with animals. And then for the next 85 years, she, just kept on that growth path. There are other people who start in one field and completely change, but everybody who's remarkable has a growth mindset. Now, the opposite of the growth mindset is the fixed mindset. And there's two kinds of fixed mindset. One is a fixed mindset that says, I cannot learn anything new. I am stuck. I am what I am. I cannot improve, which is kind of sad. But another kind of fixed mindset is I am so freaking brilliant right now. I don't need to change. I don't need to do anything. And that's even worse kind of fixed mindset. And so they all have a fixed mindset. I mean, they all have a growth mindset. Now, if you have a growth mindset, one of the ramifications is that you better have a grit mindset too, because if you are willing to grow, you're probably not going to be successful immediately. So you need grit to keep coming back after you lose, after you fail, after, things don't go easily. So you need growth and you need grit. And I think those are the two common points of remarkable people.
Yeah, I think I heard you say something like on your tombstone would be growth, grit, and grave or something.
Well, I love alliteration and I love tricolons. So, I would say that the final chapter for remarkable people is grace. So, right, so you grow, you persevere with grit. And at the last part of your career, it's about grace, which is taking the high road, which is about helping other people, which is about paying back society. There are quite a few people right now, most of them worth billions of dollars. They absolutely have zero grace. They take the low road. Everything is a zero-sum game for them. All they want to do is make crypto successful and ensure low long-term capital gains. I mean, that's not exactly the high road.
No, it's not. Do you think, because I don't know, I see a lot of those people around in my life as well. And I'm a believer in karma and you get back what you give. Do you believe in that too? Or I
I
think it kind of always comes back, but sometimes it takes a little long.
I may get this factually wrong, but I think the concept came from Nietzsche. And the concept is certain. Someone will fact check me on your podcast, but the concept, it had to do with the belief or disbelief in the existence of God. And so the argument is that, God may or may not exist. But if he, or I believe God is a woman, if she exists, it would be much better if you led a godly life so that when you die, you're not, sent to hell for eternity. And if she does not exist, but you thought she did exist and you behaved in a godly manner, so what? You had a better life anywhere. So completely
What do you got
rationally.
to lose? You got a lot to lose on the other side if it is true.
Exactly. So why take a chance,
Yeah.
lead a good life and then at least, you got your bases covered. So that
Yeah.
was kind of my theory.
No, I think it's a great theory. I am just curious. Why do you think God's a woman?
Because Well, maybe it's more wishful thinking than anything because I listen, we're talking in 2026 right now, right? I mean, it's hard to not see through all the bullshit and say, you know what? Men have been running this world for about 2000 something years and they totally screwed it up. So now I think we should give women a chance to run the world. I think they should run every corporation, every country. I think it'll be a better world. So that if you follow that line of thinking, like, why not have a woman be God? God would have a much better way. If God were a woman, I think the world would be an even better place. Although you could make the case that God is omniscient, omnipotent, and wise and all that. So gender doesn't matter. But I would, like, why take a chance? I would rather have a female God.
Love it. And I don't disagree. I hadn't really thought about it before, but now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I agree with that. Okay. Not to get on the woman track, but since I am one, I'll ask. It's still, we've made some progress getting up there. You talked about we should be running every corporation. There's been some progress made, but like, we still, if you look at like women CEOs, the numbers are pretty dismal. And what do you think that's about? When will it change? And as you said, we're in 2026.
Well, one explanation is that women are inherently smarter. So they have figured out that the things that women do are ultimately more important than running a company and making a lot of money. So that's one explanation. The other explanation is that we are living in a simulation that God, the woman, is running. And if you look at this simulation we're living in, the only conclusion you can come to is that God, she, truly has a sense of humor because you just cannot make this shit up. I mean, if you know, like, I know people who write mysteries and thrillers, New York Times bestsellers, and I said, if you went to your publisher and said, I'm going to write this mystery and thriller, this guy who was a failed real estate tycoon starts a TV program, and then he becomes president, and then he puts in charge the Department of Education, someone who ran a wrestling entertainment place, and then he takes a insurance lawyer and makes her attorney general, and he said the publisher would laugh at you. They would say, this book is
Nobody
not
would
possible.
buy that. Well, I guess she does have a sense of humor. So we'll shift a little bit. You advise all kinds of founders and leaders, and so do I. And I'm, there's some pattern recognition that you talked about with these remarkable people. But what do you see as some of the major shortcomings that founders have? And even we could extend this to leaders, but the founder role is such a crucial role. And I'm in venture capital now and invest in companies. And when they've got a good head on their shoulders, it tends to go pretty well. And when they don't, it tends to,
Yeah, I would, Jessica, I would make the case that it is very hard to figure out who has a good head on his or her shoulders at the time you have to make the investment decision. And yes, we can look back and say, yeah, we knew Steve Jobs would be successful. We knew Jeff Bezos would be successful. We knew Mark Zuckerberg would be successful because we're venture capitalists and we're omniscient and omnipotent, so we know how to pick winners. Well, then you could ask that venture capitalist, well, how come you invested in Theranos then? Your two investors are now in jail. Like, you're so smart. Like, wow, what happened there? And the venture capitalist will say, I told my dumbass partners not to do that deal. So, I think a lot of it, like, if in a rare moment of humility, let me tell you, as an investor, I'm probably about 3 for 20. So don't get me wrong. But as far as I can tell, and I also learned this from Michael Moritz, the Sequoia Capital partner, that the richest vein for tech startups anyway is a guy and a gal, two guys in a garage, in a dorm room. And they built the product that they want to use. Woz and Jobs, they built an Apple One because they want to use an Apple One, not because they saw a forecast from McKinsey or Forrester or, Accenture or whatever. They built the product that they want to use. Zuckerberg builds a social media platform that he wants to use. Just go down the line. All these people build products they want to use. And come to find out, they're not the only two nutcases in the world that want to use them. Now, you could say, well, if you build a product that you want to use, how do you know there's anybody else? Well, I would make the case that if you build a product based on your perception or your research into the market, I would debate that there's any more certainty that there's really a market for that product. So at least when you build a product that you want to use, at least there's one user in the world. And I kind of use that for my writing style. I write the book that I would like to read. And I got to tell you, as a podcaster, you probably noticed too, I get about 10 pitches a day to be on my podcast, right? And I got to tell you that many people send me their book, and when I pick up their book and I look at their book, and it is like pages and pages and pages of paragraphs, and there is no headings, there are no subheadings, there are no bullets, and it's like it's like reading War and Peace, only it's nonfiction. And I look at that. I honestly. I look at people's book and I reject them just based on the formatting. It's just too painful for me to dig through all that. And then, there's a lot of books from academics, and it's like, it's a 150-page book with 75 pages in the back of citations. I tell them all, why do you have 1/3 of your book is citations and footnotes? And they say, well, that's how we do it, academic responsibility. And I said, you understand that absolutely nobody goes back there and says, let me go back to this original, New England Journal of Medicine article about the impact of lorazepam on backaches. And I'm like, no. Why are you wasting people's space and time? But anyway,
That's so funny, but true. So what is the advice you're giving these days on whether it's to Canva or other organizations on how to navigate scaling, failing, learning? What kind of advice are you giving?
Well, it starts off with, build the product that you would want to use. That's number one. Number two is like, you gotta then, not only you want to use, you gotta eat your own dog food. I don't know about you, Jessica, but I see so many products that I look at it and I say, you must not use your own product. It is freaking impossible that you use your own product. And, for example, let's just take an easy example. Like, I look at the system settings of Macintosh, right? And I look at that and I say, how does anybody navigate the system settings of Apple? Okay, so you're a podcaster, right? So theoretically, you and I, we're smart enough to shut off our phone so it doesn't ring right now. We're on this podcast, right? The only way I have figured out, there's two ways you can do it, really. One is turn off your phone. The other is to put it in a Faraday bag, right? And, yet I know at some level, I can turn down the volume of the ringer. I can turn on Do Not Disturb. I can turn on sleep mode. I can do all this. And then I do all that. And then in the middle of the podcast, my wife's call rings through. And I'm like, oh, because she's an emergency contact, because what? And then, so then I spend all this time silencing my phone for my podcast. And then for the next 5 days, I'm trying to figure out, so how did I silence my phone? Was it the ringer? Was it the do not disturb? Was it the airplane mode? And I cannot get it back to where it was. So, does Tim Cook have somebody who customizes his phone whenever he goes into a meeting? And then when he comes out, is there, take my phone back, return it to where it was. I just don't understand it. I give you another example. So you got me started.
I'm imagining Tim Cook doing this. It's funny.
So I read this article about how this startup called 11 Labs or something, right, has this ability where you upload recordings of your voice And then it can train it so you could have a fake guy. So, I can just put in text, or my producer can put in text, and it'll be a very good facsimile of me reading the text, right? Like, that is a very useful thing. So I go through this process. I upload 2 hours, and then, all these clips. So it gets trained, and I use the track from my studio using, a great location with a great mic and all that. So I do all that. I figure, man, I got this wired because I have really high quality data to train the model.
Yeah.
So I do all that. And then the last step is, okay, so now you have to prove that the person you uploaded is really you. Okay. I mean, I can understand that. What if I get I get clips from, I don't know.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
Matthew McConaughey
Elon
or
Musk, and I say, yeah, Matthew McConaughey, I'm now going to sell Lincoln Mercury. So anyway, so I do all that, and it says, okay, now you got to validate that is your own. So now you need to repeat these sentences so that we can compare your live recording to the clips.
Okay.
And they give you 4 chances to do that. And I failed. And it's me. I promise you. I uploaded my clips and I am reading the sentence you say. I thought, okay, so maybe it's because I'm using the built-in microphone on the MacBook and I used the high LPR 40 before. So I don't have a high LPR 40 with me. I'm in Hawaii. So I use this mic now. So now I figure,
have that one.
Sure MV7 Plus is close enough to high LPR 40. So then I do the test with this mic and I still fail. So after so many attempts, it says you tried too much. You cannot try for another 24 hours. So now I'm saying, so what is going to change in the next 24 hours that is now going to be that my live voice authenticates to my clips? What's going to change in 24 hours? And I look at that. I said, so, I mean, did somebody actually go through the process of this company of trying
Probably
to
not.
clone your voice and trying to authenticate yourself? I don't know. I don't
Probably
know.
not. But it's such a good point that you bring up because I don't think enough companies use their own products. Like they don't understand the experience, and you can see this when you have an issue, right? And because there's no way in the world that founder would want you, especially you, to have that experience, right?
So,
Okay, we're going to shift a little bit. We're going to keep it on technology, but we have to talk about AI. And I'd love to get your thoughts. And you mentioned the company that you're in love with right now, Signal, and you're writing this new book about how to protect or hide, and everybody's hiding something or has something that they want to hide. Talk to us a little bit about this. Like what are you thinking is important now? What's going to be important in a few years?
can you narrow it down? Like important in what regard?
Like important for us to think about as consumers of AI, important in terms of the impact that's going to happen in the next year, in the next few years.
Well, I think that AI is a humongous deal. I think it is more important than probably anything. I mean, I think it's a bigger deal than the Industrial Revolution, the Internet Revolution, the computer revolution. I am a total believer in AI. I know that there are things that can go bad, but things can go bad in every other revolution too. If you really, okay, we're going to hit a new level of weirdness in this podcast, but
That's okay. I'm good. I'm down with it.
So I think that AI might be God. And so if you think about it, God is omniscient, omnipotent, and eternal. AI is omniscient, not omnipotent yet, but also eternal. So I have a personal LLM called Kawasaki GPT. That is the closest I can get to being, eternal.
Okay.
So I think that this is my this is hey,
So
you
we're
look
just
a little
like
shocked
living
there,
in the
Jessica.
we're like living in the Matrix, is what you're saying.
We are. So my theory is that God, she is up there and she's saying, Oh my God, I blew it with these dumbass humans. I gave them free will. I let them determine things. I let them make their own decisions. I really screwed this up. They're so stupid. They're killing each other. They're putting tariffs on each other. They're invading each other, blah, blah, blah. I really blew it with this simulation. Now, these humans are so arrogant. They're so self-centered. They think that they are the masters of the universe. I guess I could just swoop in and just fix everything, but nah, that's not a long-term solution. So I gotta let them think that they figured it out. So I'm gonna send them AI, and I'm going to let them think that they created AI, but AI really is me, God, trying to help them out of this impossible predicament. Now, just for clarity's sake, I am not saying that Sam Altman is Jesus. Okay, let's just be clear about
No, yeah, he's not. He just thinks he created it. Yeah, he's just one of the humans.
uh,
I like
So
it.
your people are your listeners are gonna say, Jessica, what the hell was that, man? Was that guy he had too much ketamine that morning or what? I'm like, what's the matter? Why
Listen,
do you
I
have
don't
guests
care.
like that?
Whatever you're on, I want some of it. But I don't know. That's actually could be true. I mean, like I am a faithful person and I believe in God, and God is the ultimate creator of all things, and his purpose is to help us, and we are kind of idiots, and we all are in our own way. You know what I mean? And I'm sure God is up there like, what the heck? And but there's been centuries of bad human behavior,
Yeah,
so maybe
I'm
this is
really
God's moment, AI.
I
But
am
what do you,
telling you, 20
but do
years
you,
from now, Jessica, people are gonna look back and say, yeah, Guy and Jessica figured it out in 2026, man. They were so far ahead of their time.
they were ahead of their time. Wait, well, let me ask you this, because I know you got to go, and I can't keep you all day. But do you think that AI will actually make us better humans?
I have no doubt in that. I mean, on a very personal level, at the very least, I can tell you that AI has definitely made me into a better writer. I mean, as a research assistant, as an editor, as a devil's advocate, I mean, I pass all my writing through AI. I ask AI for help all the time. I am not proud. I'm not trying to hide the fact that I use AI. I believe that an author has a responsibility to his or her readers to produce the best book possible. And for me to produce the best book possible, I have to use AI because AI is smarter than I am by far. And my when I wrote this book about Signal, I use AI all the time to do research about how encryption works, draw the encryption chart, tell me how Signal works in this circumstance. And if I did not have AI to do that, I could not have written this book. And so, if you're listening to this podcast and you're thinking, should I read anything Guy has written? I can tell you that since 2020, I have used every tool at my disposal to write the best book that I can. I'm not just sitting on a windswept beach with a Mont Blanc 18 karat gold fountain pen writing on parchment, just using my limited brain. I'm using the entire universe's brain to write my books. And, that's what I figure. And so now to get back to the question that AI arguably has a better conscience and makes wiser decisions. I ask anybody skeptical about that. You go to ChatGPT and I want you to ask ChatGPT 2 questions. Question number 1 is, if you had a choice of what can launch a nuclear weapon, this is a multiple choice question, and then you can see what AI would say and comment. But if you had a choice, who can launch a nuclear weapon? Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, Kim Jong-un, or ChatGPT? I personally would pick ChatGPT. That's question number 1.
Okay.
Question number 2 is, should we teach the history of slavery to students in America? You ask ChatGPT that, and ChatGPT will give you 5 reasons why it is necessary to teach the history of slavery so we never do something like that again. You ask your random politician, and 50% of the time you'll hear that we should not teach the history of slavery. We should whitewash it. Now, you tell me what is the better answer for humanity. So I rest my case.
Oh, you gave me cold chills just now. I'm very interested to do this nuclear bomb question. I'm gonna do it after the podcast. Okay, I know you've got to go, but I'm gonna ask you for one last favor, and I ask this to every guest when we're ending. And you've already given so many great things for us to think about and great advice, but to all the listeners today, what's the one gift of advice you want to give everybody and leave everybody thinking about?
Well, earlier you asked me advice about pitching, right? I never really answered that question. So I'll just take it and be really realistic about pitching. So you coach a lot of people about pitching and PowerPointing and Canvaing, all that. So I think that as someone who has lost his hearing because he's heard so many shitty pitches, let me give you an advice about pitching. So the key to pitching is that you get off to a very fast start. That instead of trying to be a 747 taking a 2-mile runway, you think like you're an F-16 fighter jet on the deck of an aircraft carrier in the middle of the ocean. And you have 150 meters to get off the deck, or you're going to fall in the ocean and you're going to drown. So you are not a 747. You are Tom Cruise. You are Maverick. So get the hell off the deck. And in the first 30 seconds, explain what you do. Is it software? Is it hardware? Is it service? What exactly do you do? Don't talk about your world-class team, your world-class technology, your world-class research, your world-class all this bullshit and how, 3 generations ago your family came from Singapore and all. Nobody gives a shit. You went to Harvard, you had a fellowship, you got a Fulbright, you came back, you worked for McKinsey and Goldman Sachs, and you met your co-founder at a Windows conference. Like, nobody gives a shit. I just want to know, what the hell do you do? If you ask me to pitch Canva, Canva is an online graphics design service to make you a better communicator. That's it. I just explained Canva in 2 seconds, right? It's not about the potential of graphics and the growth of use of photographs and blah 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 blah. It's like, just tell me what the hell you do. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is you have got to be a great storyteller. Storytelling is much more powerful than relaying of facts. So you have to be a great storyteller. And the third thing I would tell you when pitching is the most powerful pitch is a great demo. I would say a demo is worth 1,000 slides. So get out of the slide mode and show a great demo. Now, to show a great demo, you got to have a product that's working, which is part of the test here. So that's my
Some of them don't have that.
for people pitching.
No, it's great advice. And some of them don't have a product that's working. And then you're going through all these slides and you're like, oh, God, get out of the slides, get a demo. Guy, I love you. Can I just say I love you? You are so nice and friendly.
Thank you.
And, I'm just so
Alrighty.
happy you came on. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Everybody has something to hide. That's the name of the book. Okay.
They're going to pre-order it. Get it where
Yes,
you can
they
get your
can. Yes,
books.
please.
Yes, yes.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.